R.L. Stine's Fear Street. Trapped. Chapter 1. "I can't believe I'm here," Elaine Butler muttered to herself. She steered her Civic around the deep puddle that always formed at the entrance of the Shadyside High parking lot. The windshield wipers whisked back and forth. Elaine shivered in her coat and sweatshirt. The heater hardly helped at all. "I can't believe it," she thought. "I'm really here on a Saturday." She tried to convince herself it was like any other day of school, but it wasn't. It was detention. "I must be some kind of moron," she told herself, another chill running up her spine. She put the car in park and shut the engine. She couldn't bring herself to get out. A strong wind slapped rain against the windows. She gazed through the mist at Shadyside High. The old building stood gray, cold, and lifeless. The windows were dark. Only 2 other cars were parked in the lot. "How did I get myself into this?" Elaine asked herself. She remembered the moment clearly, a moment of total panic when she realized she forgot her trig homework. She had left it on her desk at home, finished down to the last formula, folded neatly, ready to go. But she forgot to put it in her math book. Her teacher, Mr. Forrest, wasn't sympathetic. "That's 3 missed assignments, Elaine," he said, stroking his mustache. He scanned his gradebook in front of the whole class. "Yes, 1, 2, and 3. He smiled. "He's enjoying this," Elaine thought. "In this class, Elaine, 3 is a charm. Please collect your books and go to the principal's office." Her classmates were silent the whole time, but Elaine could feel their eyes burning into her back as she left the room. They were probably thankful it wasn't them. Everyone knew that if you missed 3 homeworks in Mr. Forrest's trig class, you got detention. No second chances. "I did the homework," Elaine pleaded, "but I forgot it." "That's a shame," Mr. Forrest replied, his expression unmoved. Elaine knew what she was in for. She had heard the rumors. The new principal, Mr. Savage, was changing things. The old detention was the first to go. No more 2 hours after school. That was too easy. It didn't solve anything. But if students had to sacrifice a whole day for their crimes, Mr. Savage's Saturday detention was born. "And I'm the guinea pig," Elaine grumbled out loud, staring out her car window. She sighed. She couldn't sit there forever. She grabbed her backpack and got ready to run. "Look at the bright side," she told herself. "At least I'm not wasting a nice day." She slammed the car door and ran. It was a short distance, but the droplets still rolled down her neck like tiny ice cubes. The front door to the school burst open before she touched it. Elaine stopped so hard her feet skidded on the wet marble of the walkway. She caught a glimpse of a pale hand gripping the crash bar from inside. The door opened wider. She stared up into the face of Mr. Savage. His eyes were large and tired-looking, with dark bags under them. His cheeks were sunken. He always reminded Elaine of a sad hound dog. Mr. Savage opened the door wider. "Come in, Elaine." Elaine didn't hesitate. She shook herself off, trying to stay on the big rubber mat inside the door. She figured Savage would give her a hard time if she got water all over the floor. The hallway was large. The only light came from the front office down the hall. "You're the last one," Savage announced, but he stared out the open door as if waiting for someone else. He wore a black suit and tie, even on a Saturday. "Who died?" Elaine wanted to ask. Savage let out a long sigh, took one last look at the rain, and let the door slam shut. Finally, his gaze fell on Elaine. "Mr. Savage?" she asked. He cocked an eyebrow. "Yes?" I'm kind of new at this," she replied. "What do I do?" He smiled coldly. "You've never had detention before?" "No." "You're a good student, Elaine," he stated. I thought it was strange for you to get detention, so I reviewed your file. Uh-oh, Elaine thought. Good grades, he continued, plus student council, track, and the newspaper. What did you do wrong? Elaine's cheeks grew hot. Missed 3 homeworks in Mr. Forrest's class? She murmured. Oh, right. Savage nodded. The homework you left at home. Yeah. Elaine could tell that he didn't believe her. Why would he? Kids lied to him every day, even good students. I don't suppose you'll be making a habit of this? He asked dryly. No. Good. It would be a shame to ruin such a fine school record with a bunch of detentions. He sighed again. Even I learned some hard lessons in my day. Truly hard. His voice trailed off. Elaine waited for him to say something else, but he just kept staring over her head. Elaine cleared her throat. The principal glared at her. The others are in room 111, he said. Please go there. He turned and strode toward the front office. Immediately, she pictured herself slipping back out into the rain and heading to the mall. Yeah, spending the day there, calling up her friends, shopping, then telling her parents that detention wasn't all that bad. Not a chance. This stinks, she muttered. She strode down the gloomy corridor toward room 111. Her footsteps echoed in the empty hall. The sound reminded her that she was here all by herself. No friends, no one to talk to, nothing but rain and homework for a whole Saturday. I'll never miss another trig assignment as long as I live, she vowed. She pulled her jacket tighter around herself and tried to fight off the chill that refused to leave her body. It was going to be a long day. She had no idea how long, or how dangerous. Chapter 2. Light poured out from room 111. Voices rose in laughter. Elaine shifted the weight of her backpack and strode in. The laughter stopped when she entered. One guy, heavy-set and wearing a flannel shirt, scribbled on the board. His hair hung down over his face, and his razor stubble was thick as sandpaper. Another guy sat at a desk near the front. His name was Jerry Fox. Elaine knew him from her classes. He was short and slight, wearing a tan sweater and khakis. His sandy-colored hair was curly and cut close to his head. His biology textbook stood open in front of him. 2 others sat at the back of the classroom. The girl was brown-haired and pretty, but the intensely dark rings of makeup around her eyes gave her face a harsh quality. She wore a rock concert t-shirt and tight jeans. She popped a bubblegum bubble and stared. Elaine tried not to make eye contact. Elaine knew the last guy only by reputation. Bo Kendall, a real creep. He wore a torn army jacket, torn t-shirt, and torn jeans. His jet-black hair was spiked short. His eyes locked on Elaine's as soon as she appeared. Wow, she grumbled to herself. Not my usual crowd. She knew the stories about Bo. Everyone knew the stories. Fights, smoking in class, setting off firecrackers in the boys' bathrooms, and even worse, supposedly, Bo stole a car, but no one knew for sure. Hi, Elaine mumbled. Is this detention? No, it's dissecting class, Bo replied, sarcastically. The dead rats'll be here in a minute. I can't wait, Elaine replied, trying to sound cool. The guy at the blackboard giggled. Dead rats make great pets, he replied. You don't have to walk 'em. Gross. The girl with the bad makeup rolled her eyes. She tossed a crumpled-up piece of paper at Bo. Bo caught the paper and set it on his desk. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a disposable butane lighter. He flicked the cover open, snapped it to life, and held the paper ball to the flame. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're setting the place on fire, Elaine thought. The paper went up in seconds. Yow! Bo barked, dropping it on the floor. You're going to set off the sprinkler system, Jerry warned. Bo sneered. So what? I can't afford to get in any more trouble, Jerry replied. Who can? The girl shot back. Jerry turned to his book. Hey, Elaine, Bo called. You're gonna sit down or what? You're making me nervous. Sorry, she mumbled. She set her backpack down and took a seat near the door. Hi, Elaine. Jerry nodded at her. Get that trig homework done? Ha ha, very funny. Elaine smiled, grateful for a friendly face. What did you do? Excessive brown-nosing, muttered the guy at the blackboard. Elaine took a closer look at what he was drawing. Graffiti. In big, swirling letters, he had written, I will not. The rest was yet to come. Jerry ignored him. Did you dissect frogs in bio? He asked. Yeah, Elaine answered. Just thinking of the squiggly intestines and the smell of formaldehyde made her stomach heave. It was disgusting. I wouldn't do it, Jerry said, frowning. It's useless. You don't learn anything you can't get from diagrams. Why do we have to cut them up? You got detention for not cutting up a frog? Bo asked from behind them. I don't think we should, Jerry told him. It's inhumane. The frog is already dead, Bo pointed out. So, would you like it if they cut you up after you're dead? I hope they do, Bo replied. They might learn something. Jerry snorted and turned back to Elaine. I just didn't want to do it. Elaine shrugged. She didn't have any moral objections to cutting open a frog. It was just gross. Mrs. Blaker gave you detention for that? The guy at the blackboard asked. She gave me a choice, Jerry replied glumly. Either dissect the frog or go to detention and write a 1,000-word report on amphibians. And you chose this? The guy asked. Jerry shrugged. For a smart guy, Bo said, shaking his head, you sure are stupid. I don't expect you to understand, Kendall, Jerry sneered. Duh, okie dokie, Bo replied. He tore several pages out of a textbook and fanned them like a hand of cards. He flicked open his lighter and set them on fire. Knock it off, Jerry snapped. Duh, I can't, Bo said. I don't know right from wrong, remember? Bits of burning paper floated through the air. Elaine ducked away from them. She wondered what Bo planned to do when the paper burned down to his fingers. Bo began to tear more pages out of the book in front of him. Hey, stop! Elaine whirled around to see Mr. Savage in the doorway. Put that out right now, he cried. Okay, Bo replied. He walked slowly to the front of the room and dropped the whole thing in the garbage can. Then he grabbed a flower vase off the teacher's desk. He yanked the flowers out and poured the water over the flames. He replaced the flowers in the empty vase. Then he turned to the principal and smirked at him. Happy now? Is this guy nuts? Elaine wondered. What is he trying to prove? I hope you don't have any plans next Saturday, Bo, Savage said. His voice shook with rage. Because you'll be here for another detention. Nuts! Bo smacked his forehead. There goes that croquet tournament. The brown-haired girl giggled into her hand. Elaine couldn't believe them. She and her friends didn't like Savage either, but she would never purposefully be disrespectful to him. It was like asking for more trouble. Mr. Savage stepped toward the girl. If anyone should keep her mouth shut, it's you, Darlene. You've cut enough classes to spend another year here at Shadyside. Would you like that? Darlene stared at her fingernails. Guess not, she mumbled. Savage turned to the guy at the blackboard. He'd only gotten as far as, I will not paint. Take a seat, Max. Max scowled. He dropped the chalk on the floor and chomped over to a desk in the first row. Savage examined the chalk drawing. It's a shame you didn't think about using chalk when you spray-painted the school bus, Savage said. Your style needs work. You an art critic, Max muttered. Maybe if you didn't play follow the leader with Bo so much, you'd take your talent more seriously, Savage told him. Max shrugged. Okay, people, Savage continued. Here are the ground rules. No talking, no getting out of your seats, and from now on, if one of you messes up, you all mess up. That way you can police yourselves. Wonderful, Elaine thought. These guys are going to get in trouble all day long, and I'm going to end up getting more detention for it. That's so unfair. But there wasn't anything she could do about it. Mr. Savage, how does one police oneself? Beau asked. Savage ignored him. If you follow these simple guidelines, you can go home at 3. If you don't, you come back next Saturday with Beau. Understood? Yes, Jerry replied a little too loudly. Max made a snorting noise. Savage surveyed the group one last time, his gaze moving from one student to the next. Elaine couldn't tell if he enjoyed punishing them or not. Some teachers live for it. Mr. Savage was hard to read. I'll be back shortly, he murmured, heading to the door. Out of the corner of her eye, Elaine saw movement. She glanced over her shoulder and saw Beau standing up. She heard a click. Savage didn't turn around. Beau raised his arm above his head. With a sick feeling, Elaine realized what he held. A switchblade knife. Elaine gasped as Beau hurled the blade at Savage's back. Chapter 3. The knife spun through the air. Elaine heard it whistle as it flew over her head. The classroom door slammed shut. The knife thunked into the bulletin board next to it. Savage never knew what happened. Elaine let out a breath she'd been holding. Beau had timed his throw perfectly. Or had he? Beau was definitely crazy enough to show off. But was he crazy enough to try to kill Mr. Savage in front of 4 other people? Elaine realized her hands were locked around the edges of her desk. Her knuckles were white. She forced herself to let go. Police that, Beau laughed. What was that? Jerry demanded. A knife, stupid, Beau answered, striding toward the door. You could have killed him, Beau, Darlene cried. Yeah, man, Max agreed. That was pretty dumb. Elaine felt surprised. She figured Beau's friends would think the switchblade was funny. Well, I'm dumb, remember? Beau replied. Bad grades, bad attitude, bad manners. Guess I'm just a bad guy. He yanked the knife out of the bulletin board, folded it up, and put it away. Then he moved to the teacher's desk and sat down. Nice chair, he remarked. He swiveled back and forth a few times. I can't believe you, Jerry muttered. Why? Beau asked innocently. You could have killed him. Are we still talking about that? Beau groaned. He spoke in a high-pitched voice. That was so 5 minutes ago. Elaine glanced nervously at the door. Savage could come back at any minute, and with Beau sitting where he was, acting the way he was, they might all get in trouble. She slumped down in her seat. Why couldn't she have remembered that stupid trig homework? Then this wouldn't be happening to her. This wasn't supposed to happen to a straight-A student. Well, a B-plus student, she corrected herself. But so what? I still don't belong here. Not with these creeps. What are you in for? Beau asked. Elaine's head snapped up. Beau stared hard at her. Blowing off homework, she replied. Her casual tone shocked her. Was she actually trying to sound like being here was no big deal? Blowing off homework? Beau repeated. Hey, Max, when was the last time we did homework? Multiplication tables in 3rd grade? Yup. Beau turned his attention back to Elaine. You think you're tough? He asked. I don't think so, Elaine replied. Oh, come on, he continued. Take my lighter. Burn a book for me. Before Elaine could answer, Darlene marched up the aisle. She sat down on the teacher's desk in front of Beau, blocking his view of Elaine. Elaine felt as if a weight had lifted. Having to stare into Beau's eyes made her nervous. She watched Darlene. Darlene was so obvious, like a dog guarding her territory. I'm bored, Beau, Darlene complained. Stop talking to Miss Yuppie and let's do something fun. Miss Yuppie? Elaine frowned. She wanted to say something back, but who knew how Darlene would react? She might pull a knife of her own. I have an idea, Beau said. Come on. He stood up. So did Max and Darlene. What are you doing? Jerry demanded. Getting out of here, Beau replied. I knew it, Elaine thought. Here comes another detention for sure. Where are we going? Darlene asked. I don't know, Beau said, but I'm not rotting here all day. Let's go see if we can snag some snacks in the cafeteria. Cool, Max agreed. Are you nuts? Jerry snapped. Savage said he's going to be right back. So? I'm not getting any more detentions just because you can't sit still, Jerry said. So don't come, Darlene replied. I won't. Beau leaned over Elaine's desk. She got a good look at his rugged face and deep brown eyes. He really is kind of good-looking, she thought, if you like that type. What about you? He asked her. What about me? He smirked at her. Are you coming with us? Elaine felt her cheeks heat up. She tried to meet his gaze. Why was it so hard to make eye contact with him? Let's go, Darlene growled. Beau ignored her. He continued to stare at Elaine. Think about it. Either way, you'll probably end up with more detention. Savage used to say, if one person messes up, everybody gets in trouble. Even back when he was teaching driver's ed. Basically, you've broken the rules already. You might as well come along and get some food out of it. Elaine knew she should stay put, but she couldn't help it. Deep down, she was glad Beau wanted to include her. It wasn't like they were doing anything really bad, and besides, she didn't want Darlene to make any more Miss Yuppie comments. Okay, Elaine replied, getting to her feet. Let's go. Beau grinned. That was easy, wasn't it? Great, Darlene muttered. She rolled her eyes. Elaine, are you crazy? Jerry yelped. You'll get busted. So will you, Jerry, she replied, even if you just sit here. Come on. No way. Leave him, Elaine, Max growled. He wasn't invited anyway. Okay, Beau blared. Let's get out of here. He slowly opened the classroom door. The hinges squealed. Beau slipped through the door and peered up and down the hallway. All clear. I'm not covering for you, Jerry called after them. Shut up, Max muttered. Seriously, Jerry continued, I won't do it. Beau stepped out into the hallway. Darlene grabbed onto the back of his army jacket, and Max followed. Elaine crept along after him. The corridor was deserted, no sign of Savage. Rain washed against the plate glass window at the far end of the hall, sending shadowy waves of light across the floor. Elaine's heart pounded with excitement. This is dumb, she told herself. It better be worth it. A heavy hand landed on her shoulder. Elaine gasped. She spun around to see Jerry. What are you doing? She demanded. You scared me half to death. Sorry, he replied. Nice of you to join us, Fox, Beau muttered. Now be quiet. Fine, Jerry whispered. They started toward the cafeteria, walking silently. Beau halted every few steps. Elaine figured he was listening for Savage's shoes clicking on the floor. She expected to hear footsteps any minute, but they heard nothing. Elaine felt strange sneaking through the school like this. It was the same place she went every day, the same boring place, but now that the lights were out and the halls were empty, they felt very different. She kept her eyes on Beau as she walked. He looked totally comfortable sneaking around this way, as if he did it all the time. It must be kind of fun to be like Beau, she thought. He doesn't care about getting in trouble. Elaine had a lot of worries. Grades, activities, getting into a good college, excelling, her father called it. Beau and his friends don't have to excel, she thought. She felt a twinge of jealousy. She couldn't imagine not worrying about her parents, friends, and future. But even this little act of rebellion was something. It made up for spending a Saturday in detention, and she liked it. So far. The cafeteria was as gloomy as the rest of the school. The long tables sat empty, wiped clean of greasy crumbs and spilled milk. The only illumination came from the soda machine in the far corner and a beam of dreary gray light from a single window. The cans are gonna sound like gunshots coming out of there, Max commented. I'm not going to buy my snacks, Beau scoffed. let's hit the kitchen." He pushed through the swinging doors that led behind the lunch counter to the kitchen. He immediately snapped up a tray. "Time to go shopping," he exclaimed. He charged into the maze of refrigerators, chopping blocks, and industrial-sized mixers. Elaine wasn't really hungry. She'd had toaster pastries for breakfast, but a chocolate milk didn't sound bad. "I need potato chips," Darlene called. "Are there any ice cream sandwiches?" Max asked. He yanked open a big steel door. Elaine peered over his shoulder into the fridge. All she saw were massive tubs of mayo and mustard. "Yuck," Max grumbled. He slammed the door shut. "Where's the freezer?" "All right," Darlene cried in triumph. Elaine spotted her in the corner with a bag of corn chips. "Where's the regular refrigerator?" Elaine wondered. She glanced around and saw Jerry in front of another big steel door. He held several cans of iced tea in his arms. Elaine grinned at him. "Don't look at me that way," he complained. "Everyone else is doing it." "I know," Elaine replied. "I want chocolate milk." "Oh!" Jerry's expression relaxed. "Second shelf." Elaine took only 2 pints, even though there were hundreds more, but no one else held back. Jerry guzzled his iced teas. Darlene chomped through several bags of chips, and Max ate at least 4 ice cream sandwiches. Elaine gazed around the kitchen. She was having so much fun that she'd forgotten about Mr. Savage for a minute. "I wonder if he knows we're missing yet," she thought. She turned to the others, ready to suggest that they go back, but something was wrong. Someone was missing. "Where's Beau?" she asked. The others stopped eating and looked around. "Where did he go?" Elaine pressed. "What do you care?" Darlene snapped. "I don't," Elaine said, "but he's gone. Don't you care?" Darlene looked annoyed. "Beau!" she called. No answer. "Maybe he went back to the room," Jerry suggested. "No way," Max grunted. "Hey, Beau, come on. Where are you?" Still no answer. "We should look for him," Elaine said. Nobody answered. Elaine glanced around at all the gigantic appliances and machines in the kitchen. In the dim light, everything looked sort of creepy. Her gaze came to rest on a rack of cooking utensils against the far wall. Ladles, tongs, and knives. Big butcher's knives. And one was missing. "Look!" Elaine cried. "That knife's gone!" "So what?" Max snapped. "Take it easy, Elaine," Jerry said. Darlene started to speak, but a low moan cut her off. Everyone froze. "What was that?" Elaine whispered. "Beau? That you?" Max called. No answer. Elaine realized her fingernails were digging into her palms. She forced herself to relax. "This isn't funny anymore, Beau," Darlene called out. "Stop it!" Another moan. "There it is again," Darlene whispered. "Beau?" Max called. A few feet in front of them, Beau staggered out from behind a big refrigerator. He stood there for a moment, swaying. His eyes were glassy. Glistening red liquid covered his shirt and neck. Elaine drew in a deep breath. It couldn't be true. It couldn't. Beau collapsed. He landed hard on the tile floor in front of Elaine. A butcher's knife clattered out of his fist. Elaine stared at his shirt, his neck, his face, soaked with blood. "No!" She let out a moan. Beau's throat. His throat had been cut. Chapter 4. Darlene screamed. "Beau!" Max cried. "Go get Savage!" Jerry ordered. But no one moved. They were all frozen in shock. Elaine's gaze locked on Beau, his gaping eyes, the ugly red wound torn across his throat, and the blood-smeared knife. "Come on," Jerry pleaded. "We have to get the principal." He grabbed Elaine by the arm, but she shook him off. She moved closer to Beau. "Wait," she ordered. "What?" Jerry replied. Beau's hand moved. "He's still alive." "You saw it?" Max asked. Elaine didn't answer. The wound terrified her, but she had to know if Beau was still alive. if she could help him. She wanted to run, but something made her stay. Something made her bend over Bo and take his hand. She felt a pulse. She turned to the others. "He's alive!" Bo's hands shot up and clamped on her throat. "It's your turn," he screamed. "More ketchup!" Elaine screeched, batting away Bo's hands. She scrambled backward until her back hit a refrigerator. Her terror quickly turned to anger. "You jerk! I'm gonna kill you!" "I'm already dead," Bo replied, grinning. "And Jerry, I want you to dissect me." Elaine tried to stop her hands from trembling. She shook her head. "I can't believe we fell for that." "You really are a jerk," Jerry told Bo. "And I thought ketchup was only good on fries," Bo joked. He grabbed a dish towel and started wiping the goo off. "I saw myself in a mirror back there, and man, it looked real." "No kidding," Darlene said, scowling. "You really thought there was some psycho running around cutting people up?" Bo asked. "This is Shadyside," Elaine commented. Everyone stared at her. "Who knows where they get the cafeteria food?" she added. The group burst into laughter. Everyone except Darlene, Elaine noticed. "Maybe she's worried that I'll steal Bo away from her," Elaine thought. She ignored the way that idea made her smile. "Let's get out of here," Bo declared. Bo led the way out into the main cafeteria again. So far, the coast was clear. "Where to?" Max asked. "Pick a direction," Bo offered. "Shh!" Elaine hissed. "Listen!" Everyone fell quiet. Footsteps clacked on the tile floor. Elaine's heart began to pound. This was no ketchup scare. This was real. "Savage is coming," she whispered. "Let's move," Bo cried. He pushed Max toward the exit to their left. "No," Jerry protested. "That's where he is." "No, he's not," Max replied. He pointed to the right exit. "He's over there." The footsteps echoed off the walls and ceiling of the cafeteria. Elaine strained but couldn't tell where they came from. "We have to do something," Elaine whispered. "He's coming." "Back to the classroom," Jerry ordered. "No," Bo countered. "He'll cut us off. I know a way. Come on." He plunged back into the maze of the kitchen. Elaine followed. As they wandered through the huge hulks of stainless steel, her pulse pounded in her ears. What if Savage caught them? More detention, or worse. She took a deep breath and kept moving. Bo led them to a door on the other side of the kitchen. They stopped and listened. The footsteps were gone. For now. Elaine let out a relieved sigh. Bo carefully pulled back the bolt that locked the door. He turned the knob, producing a loud click that might as well have been a gunshot in the silence. Still no footsteps. Bo pulled the door wide open. Beyond it stood a long hallway with rows and rows of lockers and almost pitch blackness. There were no windows in this hall. Bo motioned them forward. One by one, they stepped into the hallway. The kitchen door closed behind them. Elaine couldn't see anything. Thump, thump. The footsteps. Louder now. Elaine tried to get her bearings in the darkness. The footsteps were so close, as if coming from the stairwell right next to the kitchen. "Move," Bo grunted. He bolted down the hall. Elaine chased after him, doing a kind of scramble that was half sprint, half tiptoe. She didn't look back to see if the others were coming. The steps grew louder. Elaine tried to run faster, but it was useless. The hall was too long. Savage would come out of the stairwell, gaze down the hall, and spot them running, hear their feet pounding on the floor, and the game would be over. They reached the end of the hallway, and Bo stopped. "Are you crazy?" Jerry huffed. "Go!" "Listen," Bo replied. The footsteps were gone. "We should still keep moving," Elaine suggested. "He could be anywhere." Bo stared at her a moment, as if actually considering what she said. Elaine's cheeks grew even warmer, and she shifted uncomfortably. She hated when he stared at her like that. "She's right," Bo finally said. "If we stay here, Savage will nail us for sure." "Thought you didn't care," Jerry said sarcastically. "I don't." "I know where we can go," Elaine offered. She didn't know if it was a smart choice, but staying in the halls was definitely too risky. "Come on." She moved forward a few steps, then looked back. The four of them stared at her. "Are you going to argue about it or come with me?" she asked. She pressed on, telling herself not to care whether they followed her or not. But she did care. She didn't want to be alone in the dark hallway. When she glanced back, she was surprised to see the others close behind her. Elaine couldn't help smiling. Bo wasn't the only one who could be a leader. She only hoped her escape route didn't get them caught. "Where are we going?" Max asked. "You'll see," Elaine replied. "Check it out!" Bo exclaimed. This was a cool idea. Elaine nodded. They stood on the auditorium stage, overlooking a dim expanse of chairs. Their voices echoed in the huge room. "How about some lights?" Jerry asked. "Don't even think about it," Bo warned. "Yeah, it might interfere with Bo's next practical joke," Darlene muttered. Bo chuckled. "Are you still mad about that?" "It wasn't funny," Darlene replied. "Yeah, it was," Bo argued. "You're a jerk, Bo," Darlene muttered. "I shouldn't even be talking to you." "But you are," Bo told her, "because you know you can't stay mad at me for long." "Oh, really?" Darlene replied, but the tiny smirk on her face told Elaine that Bo was right. "These are the ugliest stage sets I've ever seen," Max interrupted. Elaine turned to see what he was talking about. The scenery for the current play was stacked along the back wall of the stage. 3 gigantic sheets of canvas had been stretched over wooden frames. Blue skies and green trees were painted on them. "Whoa, that's bad," Max said. "A monkey could paint better than that." "A monkey could," Bo teased, "but could you?" Max smirked. "Watch me." He marched over to an open supply cabinet at the right of the stage. He pulled out a box filled with cans of paint. Max selected a squeeze bottle of black acrylic paint and squirted it all over the first flat. Then he uncapped a bottle of blue, then orange. Elaine felt a tremor of shame. Max had crossed that line between fun and outright nastiness. Some of her friends were in the drama club. She could just imagine their reactions on Monday morning. "Somebody spent hours working on that scenery," Jerry muttered, echoing Elaine's thoughts. "Hurricane Max destroys all," Max replied. "They should have posted a guard." A furious screeching sound made Elaine jump. She turned to see Bo standing just off stage, a violin in his hands. He drew the bow across the strings, and the auditorium was filled with a shrill screaming sound. "Cool," Bo said with a grin. He let loose with another screech. "And I've never had a single lesson." "It's for Fiddler on the Roof," Jerry yelled over the noise. "The drama club is putting it on in a few weeks." Bo dragged the bow over the strings again. "Cut it out," Elaine called to Bo. "Why don't you just call Savage?" But Bo continued to saw at the strings. She wandered backstage, past all of the prop boxes and set decorations. Way at the back, far from Bo's screeching, she discovered a black curtain. It hung from high up in the auditorium, so high that Elaine couldn't see the top. Someone had tacked the curtain to the wall with tiny, sharp nails. "That's weird," she thought. "Why do they have a curtain so far from the front of the stage?" She peeled back the fabric. The little nails popped out and clattered to the floor around her. Elaine gasped. Behind the curtain, a dark, narrow corridor stretched away from the stage. She had never seen it before. "This is so cool," she thought. She stepped into the hall. The darkness closed around her. She slammed her toe against something hard, but she couldn't tell what it was. She yelped, surprised how loud her voice was in the gloom. She didn't hear a sound from the others. How far had she gone? She was alone. A twinge of fear crept up her spine. Maybe exploring this place wasn't such a good idea. Who knew what was back here? But what could really happen? Mr. Savage could catch her, and she would have more detentions. But then another word snaked into her mind. Suspension. Elaine shook the thought away. That was crazy. Only the real problem kids got suspended. People like Bo and Darlene and Max. But what if they got caught? What if Savage found them on stage? She glanced around. This corridor was the perfect hiding place. It was dark enough that no one would see her. No one would ever know she was there. But she knew she should get back. She took a step toward the stage. The wooden floor beneath her groaned. A loud cracking sound followed. Then, with a splintering roar, the floor gave away beneath her. Elaine lost her balance. She flung out her arms, grabbed for something, anything to catch herself, but all she touched was air. She let out a scream as she fell through the floor. Chapter 5. Elaine hurtled through the darkness. Air whooshed by her face. Her stomach slammed up into her throat. Her lungs emptied. Then she hit the ground. Hit it hard. White-hot pain rocketed up her left leg from ankle to hip. A blaze of stars dazzled her eyes. She heard a loud ringing sound in her ears. She couldn't breathe. Her heart seemed to stop. Then she felt cold cement beneath her. She felt the sharp, gritty steel of a ladder digging into her shoulder. She felt her heart pounding in her chest. The numbness gradually left her, replaced by specific points of pain. Her ankle throbbed. Her right elbow burned under her sweatshirt. How far had she fallen? 10 feet? 20? 50? No, 50 would have killed her, but 20 was a good guess. It felt like forever, long enough for her to think she was going to die. But I'm alive, she told herself, and I have to figure out where I am. She sat up, pain shooting through every joint. She ran her fingers over her ankle. It was already so swollen that she couldn't feel the bone. She tried to move it. Ow! She yelped. She'd never felt such pain in her life. Still, she knew it wasn't broken. As painful as it was, she could move it. She rubbed her elbow, feeling warm, wet skin where there should have been sweatshirt. Torn through, she thought grimly, and bleeding. A wave of nausea rolled through her. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead. Steady, Elaine murmured into the darkness. I'm okay. The sound of her own voice calmed her a little. She managed to sit up, feeling the steel ladder behind her. She couldn't see how far up it went. She patted the ground around her. Her hand brushed over rough concrete and bits of trash. A broken bottle, a crushed can, wet paper. Where was she? Some kind of tunnel beneath the school, she decided. But why was it here? She'd never heard anything about it. Elaine drew a deep breath. The place smelled damp and sort of moldy. Wherever she was, no one had been down here in a long time. She had to get out of there. She grabbed onto a rung of the ladder and tried to pull herself up. Sharp pain shot through her ankle. She dropped back to the ground. That did it. Help! She yelled. Her voice echoed off the walls and up the shaft, but it came out thin and small. Anybody! She tried again. Help me! Anybody! No reply. She was alone in the dark. A wave of fear joined the nausea. What if they didn't find her? She could be down there for days. No way, she thought. She screamed again. Still nothing. Come on! Elaine roared, swinging her fist in frustration. It slammed into the concrete wall, sending a blast of pain up her arm. She winced and slumped against the sharp metal of the ladder. Sweat poured down her face. It was hard to breathe in the dank air. Then she heard a sound. A chittering sound. Elaine froze, listened. Silence now. Then again. Tap, tap. To her right. Get off the floor, she ordered herself. Elaine fumbled for the ladder, her ankle protesting every movement. She raised herself to her knees, relief flooding through her as she grasped the rough metal. She pulled herself up. And then something fell onto her neck, something warm and heavy and alive. Chapter 6. Elaine screamed. The thing on her neck squirmed. Tiny claws burrowed into her skin. She grabbed at the thing and tried to fling it away, but it was tangled in her hair. It gave a loud squeal. A rat! Panic flooded through Elaine. She screamed again, slimy fur smeared against her skin. Finally, she tore the creature from her hair and hurled it into the tunnel. The rat landed with a squeak. Elaine scrubbed the back of her neck with her fingers. She could still feel the rat's little claws scraping against her skin. "It's gone," she told herself. "Just relax. It's gone." "And I'm out of here." Elaine grabbed a rung of the ladder. She hauled herself to her feet, putting all her weight on her right ankle. Pain shot up Elaine's left leg. She forced herself to climb onto the first rung. A thin layer of moisture covered the metal. Her hand slipped. She fell to the floor once again. She landed on a warm, squirming lump. The lump screeched and wriggled beneath her. Elaine howled. She rolled away. The rat scurried off into the darkness. Elaine flopped onto her back, close to tears. "Cool," came a voice. Elaine froze. A voice! "Get me out of here!" she cried. "Ellen? What's her name?" asked the voice. "Elaine!" she growled. They found her. She heard the same creaking sound that came before she fell, and a loud slam. The glow of Beau's lighter appeared above her. "It's a trap door," came Beau's voice. "Someone put an old board right over it. Can you climb?" Max asked. Anger flowed through Elaine. "What do you think?" "I'm coming down," Beau replied. "Are you crazy?" Elaine heard Darlene growl. "You could fall too." "Elaine will break my fall," Beau joked. Even under the circumstances, that comment made Elaine smile. Now that Beau was here, she felt safer, even in this rat-filled tunnel. The ladder trembled as Beau climbed down. It creaked and groaned under his weight, drizzling bits of rust all over her. In less than a minute, Beau stood next to her in the darkness. The rest of them followed him down the ladder. Elaine grabbed his hand and pulled herself up. His skin felt warm and dry. She stumbled a bit, still unsteady on her good foot. Beau slid his arm around her waist for support. She noticed that her ankle didn't hurt as much with his arm around her. "What happened?" he asked. "I fell." "No kidding," he chuckled. "You're lucky you didn't crack your skull." "I didn't land on my skull," she told him. Someone dropped to the concrete near them. "That ladder is totally rusted," came Max's voice. "I'm amazed we didn't all fall. Did you feel it coming loose from the wall?" "You rhymed," Beau pointed out. Max made a disgusted sound. "I'm serious, man. What are we doing down here?" "It's a rescue," Beau said. He gave Elaine a squeeze. "I can't believe I'm doing this," Darlene grumbled, dropping to the hard floor. "It smells all moldy." "That's just Max," Beau replied. "Can you stand, Elaine?" He let go of her before she could answer. "I'm fine," she replied. She hobbled to the left and leaned against the wall for support. She couldn't see much in the darkness. "Can someone tell me why we're standing in the sewer beneath Shadyside High School, please?" Jerry asked sarcastically. He jumped off the last rung of the ladder. "This isn't a sewer," Beau replied. "Come on," Darlene wailed. "Where are we?" "Let's shed some light on this situation," Beau said. He flicked his lighter. The passage was filled in flickering yellow light. Everybody gasped in shock. Chapter 7. Elaine stared at 2 words scrawled on the wall before them. "Let's party." "I've heard about this place," Beau said softly. Elaine glanced around. They stood in the corner of a large room with cinder block walls. Bottles, cans, newspapers, and food wrappers cluttered the floor. The walls were stained with patches of black mold and faded graffiti. "Let's party" was slopped on in blood-red paint. Each letter dripped halfway to the floor. Several dark passages led off in different directions. "What is this?" Jerry asked. "The labyrinth," Max replied quietly. His voice sounded odd. "Yep," Beau agreed. He and Max shared an excited glance. "What is going on?" Elaine wondered. "How do you know about it?" she demanded. "A guy I know, Lloyd, told us about this place," Beau replied. "He claimed he came down here once, but we didn't believe him." "Lloyd is a liar about most stuff," Max chimed in. "Anyway," Beau continued, "back in the 50s, they built these tunnels as a bomb shelter. Supposedly they run for miles. The plan was to connect the whole town in case we were nuked. But no one ever needed the shelter. So this place became party central. Shadyside kids would come down here and throw major parties. It was the cool place to come, Max added, because no one was allowed. Kids pretended they were stuck down here and the bombs were on their way. It was their last night on Earth and they partied like crazy. Elaine shivered. How morbid. But still, it was kind of cool. All the parties she'd ever been to were at her friends' houses, but partying down here would be more fun, more dangerous. I can't believe no one comes down here anymore, Jerry commented. I'm surprised you aren't a regular, Bo. Bo's eyes glittered in the flickering light. Maybe I'm not cool enough, Jerry. Oh, we talked about it, Max said with a smile, but we could never find the entrance. Yeah, thanks, Elaine, Bo grinned. Glad I could help, she replied. She couldn't help smiling even though her ankle hurt like crazy. I can't believe the labyrinth was this hard to find, Jerry said. So no one's been down here for years? Elaine asked. Her gaze traveled over the graffiti-covered walls. She couldn't help being fascinated. Forget the hallway upstairs. This really was a place that none of her friends at school had ever seen. They closed the tunnels off a long time ago, Max explained. All the entrances were blocked up. Why? Elaine asked. Something happened, Bo replied. Something bad. Elaine shivered. She watched their shadows flutter along the walls, as if all the kids who partied here were still hanging out, dancing. What happened? She asked. I don't know exactly, Bo replied, but kids died. A lot of kids died.